Hello, First Form. Mr. Falali here. I hope you're all doing very well. What I wanted to do today is I wanted to talk you through one aspect of your Julius Caesar longer writing task, okay, which you're going to be working towards completing this week. The deadline is going to be Friday in order to complete this longer writing task. What I wanted to do today is to try and perhaps make it slightly more straightforward for you, the planning section and the writing section of your task. By now, I imagine you will have already seen this document. If not, I'm going to talk you through it very quickly, and then we're going to get started on the planning section. Now, what I hope this video will do is it will give you an idea of how to plan around your quotations, and then how to write an analytical paragraph. We're going to write point, evidence, explain type paragraphs, and I'm going to show you how to plan one around a quotation, and then how to write one. At which point your task is going to be to try to plan your own quotations, and then to try and write analytical paragraphs out of those quotations. So this is the document, the Julius Caesar longer writing task. Lovely not a photo, they didn't have cameras back then, a drawing of Julius Caesar stood on a skull. That's lovely. I'm going to scroll down to this section here. This is what we're going to be focused on here. You have Julius Caesar. He looks a little bit tired, and it says here are some quotations either said by or about Caesar in the play to help you. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 8 of them. And just below that, you have your planning section. Okay, so you have room for 1, 2, 3 quotations. Today, I'm going to use this quotation here. He doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about. Because I think that there's a lot to be explored in that quotation. Okay, there's interesting imagery. We've got several different techniques that are being used, and also you can talk about foreshadowing, okay, which I will explain as we go. So the first thing that you want to do in this task is you want to write the quotation in this little box here, the quotation that you want to write about. So I would make sure that I pick the 3 quotations that I feel most confident. If I were a pupil, I'd be picking 3 quotations I feel the most confident about analysing and about writing about. So what I'm going to do in this section is I'm going to write that quotation. He doth. I don't want anyone to laugh at me because I'm a slow typer. So as I'm typing, I don't want anyone to be smiling or laughing. If you do, I will know. I will find out. I will call home and I will say, was anyone laughing as they were watching that video of me? And if anyone says yes, then that's going to be a level 2. That will be a level 2. His legs and peep about. Also, if I go quiet at any point, if I go silent, it's because it's very difficult to type and to talk. Try it out. Try it out with your friends. Type and talk and send them a video. It's not easy. So, here's the quotation. He doth stride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about. What I want to do now is I want to think about 2 things. One, who says this quotation and where, so that I can contextualize my quotation. But also, I want to be looking at the key words. I want to be zooming in to key words or phrases in this quotation. And I want to think about the effect of those words, the effect of those phrases, okay? So, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and we peep about. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the quotation into context, okay? So this quotation, I'm not sure if you recall this or not, but it's said by Cassius. He's speaking to Brutus in Act 1, Scene 2, and they both reveal the fact that they feel a sense of fear, perhaps jealousy, because of Caesar's growing popularity in Rome. The people of Rome are starting to really adore Caesar, and Cassius and Brutus feel conflicted because, on the one hand, they respect Caesar, but they also fear that perhaps he is developing too much power, okay? So I'm just going to write this. Now, in your annotation ideas box, we aren't writing the actual paragraph, okay? So we can write in note form. This is just to give you an idea of what you're going to say. So I'm going to write Act 1, scene 2, and I'm going to write a conversation between Cassius and Brutus. I'm going to say that they reveal a sense of jealousy or fear towards Caesar because he is growing to be extremely popular and with that powerful. They reveal a sense of jealousy or fear towards Caesar. Caesar is growing to be extremely popular and powerful. I would also mention the fact that here Shakespeare is using a bit of foreshadowing, okay? As an audience member, you immediately, upon hearing this conversation, develop a sense that something could happen to Caesar later in the play, that his tragic demise might come at the hands of Brutus and Cassius. Also, the theme of jealousy and the themes of power are introduced in the play at this point, okay? So I'm going to write this. Themes of power and jealousy introduced. Now again, we're just writing some ideas. It doesn't even have to be full sentences if you don't want. You might do this in bullet points. It's entirely up to you. This is just so you remember what you're going to write in your analytical paragraphs. So themes of power and jealousy are introduced. Foreshadowing is used because you develop a sense that Brutus and Cassius may, what am I trying to say here? The foreshadowing develops a sense that Brutus and Cassius may be involved in Caesar's demise later in the play. So that's the first thing I wanted to do. I wanted to think about, before I zoom in on any keywords or phrases, I just wanted to think, okay, well, who says this quotation and why? Okay, in this instance, the quotation is said by Cassius in a conversation to Brutus, and this is why. We've explained that. The next thing I'd want to do is I want to think a bit more critically about the quotation itself. Which words or phrases am I going to zoom in on? I'm going to pick these words. I'm going to pick the word bestride, and I'm just going to highlight it. And I recommend that you highlight yours as well, using the highlighter function. He doth bestride the narrow world. I'm going to highlight like a colossus. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to highlight the fact that he uses the adjective petty. He says, we petty men walk under his huge legs. I'm also going to highlight that we, the collective pronoun we. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to highlight walk under his huge legs because I think that's metaphorical language. I don't think that Brutus and Cassius actually think that they have to walk under Caesar's legs because he's tall. I think that this is metaphorical, and I think I can describe the effect of that. And I'm going to highlight the word peep, the adjective peep. Once I've highlighted those key words, because of course you're going to be writing your answer on this Google Doc, you don't have a pen, so you're not going to be highlighting in the way that we normally would and perhaps drawing arrows going across these words and annotating them. We're going to have to do our annotations slightly differently. So what we can do is we can just write our first word that we're going to annotate. So in this case I'm going to write bestride. And I'm going to put my annotation here. So the word bestride is a verb. I'm just going to note that. And I'm going to put its meaning, okay? So I'm going to write meaning. To bestride something is to dominate it or to stand over something. To dominate or to stand over something is to bestride it. So then I have to think, okay, well then what does that mean? So Cassius is talking to Brutus about Caesar, and he says that he bestrides the world like a colossus. And if the word bestride means to dominate, perhaps he's suggesting that Caesar is starting to dominate Rome in some way. Maybe he feels as though he's starting to dominate Rome's politics, or he's just starting to dominate Roman society with his popularity. So I'm going to write this. Bestride is a verb, and the meaning is to dominate or to stand over something. I'll write could suggest that Cassius believes Caesar is beginning to dominate Roman politics / society. And that's all I think I'll write for Bestride so far. Remember, this isn't our analytical paragraph. These are just notes, okay? And I don't want anyone to feel too daunted if you see me typing away, okay? This is just an example of, this is a good example, a strong example of how you can go about annotating, okay? You don't necessarily need to write as much as I'm going to. I just want to give you a clear idea of what you can do, okay? Next, I'm going to annotate like a colossus. What technique is that, everyone? I'm hoping at home you're all going, it's a simile, Mr. Filali. If you did, well done. It's a simile. It's a comparison between two things. In this instance, it's a comparison between Julius Caesar and a colossus. Now, what we need to do is define what a colossus is. Okay, so a colossus is a noun. It's an enormous statue. An enormous statue. They used to call them a colossus. Okay, if it's an enormous statue, it's a colossus. But it also means something of very high status. If something is very important, you might say it's a colossus, but it used to be traditionally an enormous statue. So if Caesar is being compared to an enormous statue, perhaps the effect of that simile, what Cassius means by that, why Shakespeare writes this, is perhaps he's suggesting that everyone in Rome must look up to Caesar. Now, understand something first of all. This is very, very, very important, okay? I want everyone to just pause what they're doing and listen to my lovely voice as I explain this, okay? When I say that the effect of this simile is that everyone in Rome must look up to Caesar, I'm speaking metaphorically, okay? I don't think that Cassius is saying Julius Caesar has become so tall that everyone in Rome has to look up at him and it hurts their necks. I don't think that's what he means. But when he says that Julius Caesar is like a colossus, what he means is he's become so powerful, so popular, that everyone else in society is starting to have to look up to him, you see? So, everyone in Rome must look up to Caesar. He's metaphorically suggesting that Caesar is becoming incredibly important. I will just add an S here. Okay. Next, I will move on to we petty men. So we have he doth stride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about. So the word petty, in this instance, it's an adjective. In this instance, it means to be unimportant. He says Cassius is suggesting that in comparison to Caesar, Brutus, Cassius, and the other high-status Romans are unimportant. Okay, so I'll write here unimportant. I'll also write insignificant. That in comparison to Caesar, all other Romans are becoming far less important. That in a republic, of course, would have been quite a concerning thing, because in their society, all should have equal power, relatively equal power. I'm sure you will have gone into this in your lessons, but they didn't want to have an empress, a one person dominating, ruling. The concern here, though, is that Caesar is starting to develop that power along with that popularity. Also, though, the collective pronoun we, this suggests, so Cassius doesn't say, he doesn't say I'm a petty man who has to walk under Caesar's legs. He says that we petty men walk under his huge legs. So this is a collective pronoun. He isn't just saying that he feels inferior to Caesar. He's saying that everyone is becoming inferior to Caesar. Suggestion that everyone in Roman society is becoming less powerful or significant than Caesar. Lastly, I will just do a quick annotation on the verb peep, okay? So the verb peep means to look at something quickly. I'll just note that it's a verb. Now, this word has connotations. Connotations, I'm sure you will have gone through in class, but if you haven't and you're unsure what I mean by connotations, you can think of connotations as images, other words, or emotions that we associate with a particular word. Okay, so when someone says a word to you, for example, the word peep, what image or emotion does that conjure up for you? Okay, because some words do have clear connotations. So, for example, when we talk about light and dark, we can say that light has connotations of good, whereas dark has connotations of evil. Okay, peep has connotations of fear, because when you're scared, you might peep around, you might start to look quickly. When I think of the word peep, I always think of some kind of like prey, you know, some kind of an animal that gets hunted by a predator. They might peep around because they're scared, okay? So it has connotations of fear and intimidation. So if Cassius is saying to Brutus that everyone has to peep about underneath Caesar's legs, I think what he's suggesting is that whereas Caesar has is growing this complete dominance in society and this strength and this popularity, all other Romans feel a sense perhaps of vulnerability. They feel a bit scared. Well, not necessarily scared, but they're feeling perhaps more vulnerable and more jealous of that power that Caesar has. They don't have an equal amount of popularity in their eyes that Caesar does to the Roman people, okay? I'll write some notes down so I'm not just wittering at you all. What word do you all use? Waffling. I don't want you to feel like I'm waffling right now, so I'll write down some words. So, peep is to look at something quickly, and it's a verb. It has connotations of fear and intimidation. So, the interpretation could be that all Romans, that Romans, that no, let's word it like this. The interpretation could be that no other Romans share in Caesar's popularity and power. There was one last section that we haven't quite spoken about, the idea of walking under his huge legs. I am very quickly just going to add one more thought because I think it's quite useful. When Cassius says that everyone walks under his huge legs, Caesar's huge legs, now of course that's a metaphor again. He's not literally saying that they have to walk under his legs because he's tall. I think, again, what he's talking about is the power that Caesar has. And also there's the suggestion perhaps maybe that people need to watch Caesar's steps, that Caesar is dominating Roman society and everyone else just has to take a back seat and accept the fact that Caesar is becoming this powerful man. Suggestion that other high status Romans must watch Caesar's steps. He is becoming too powerful or popular. So now what we have is one quotation. We've highlighted the key words or phrases that we're going to annotate, and we've done our annotation below alongside a quick reminder of the context, okay? Who says the quotation and why? Here you have absolutely everything you need to write an analytical paragraph. Your next task, it says, write your answer below. To help you, you can use the prompt questions and the sentence starters. So it then gives you the opportunity to write your first paragraph. Now, what I've done is I've already written the paragraph out. I'm going to copy and paste it in, and I'm going to talk you through what I've written. Okay, so I will put this here, and I'm going to talk you through it bit by bit. Now, I'm hoping, oh, hang on, is this the right bit? Hang on, everyone, close your eyes for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and open your eyes. Oh, it was the right bit. It's just opened in a strange way. Oh, Mr. Falali. Right, settle down, everyone. Here is our analytical paragraph. Now, before we read it, stop reading it if you want. You stop reading and just listen to me. I want to talk you through this section on the left-hand side, okay? So these are your sentence starters, and I want to just give you a quick reminder of what ingredients an analytical paragraph need to include, okay? So the first thing you want to do is point. What impression do you get of Caesar? So this is going to be no more than a sentence or two, and it's going to be the start of your analytical paragraph, okay? You are then going to support your point with a quotation, with evidence. Now, you can use this sentence starter. One impression the audience gets of Caesar is that. After you've completed that sentence and you have a full point, you then want to support it with evidence, a quotation, okay? How is this evidenced in the play? Choose one of your quotes from above. So at this point, you'll have 3 quotations which you've analysed, and you pick whichever quotation is relevant to the point that you've made. Then you do your analysis, okay, your explanation of your quotation. That is where all of your annotation, all of this bit, is going to be very, very helpful, okay? And what you're going to notice as I read this to you is that all I've done is I've slightly reworded this annotation. I've filled it a little bit in order to create full sentences. And this is the final paragraph. I apologise about the format. It does look a little bit lazy. I will very quickly do this just to make it look a little bit nicer. If not for you, for myself. I would like you to take 3 seconds to just think about your own thoughts. And I will just go silent now, and I will let you think those thoughts while I finish this. There's nothing worse than being asked to do something in silence and to have someone talking over and over and over. So I'm just going to stop talking for a moment, and I'm just going to allow you to have your own time while I sort this out. Okay, so I will stop talking, and you are just going to think silently. Okay, we were done with the silent thinking. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is the model paragraph. So I'm going to begin with my point. I've color coded it, okay? Red point, blue evidence, green explain. One impression the audience gets of Caesar is that he's beginning to dominate Roman society through his growing popularity with the Roman people. In Act 1, Scene 2, Shakespeare foreshadows Caesar's tragic demise later in the play in a conversation between Brutus and Cassius. Both outline their fears and concerns of Caesar's growing power, with Cassius stating, "He doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about." So in my point, I've started by explaining the impression that I get of Caesar. So one impression the audience gets is that he's beginning to dominate Roman society because he's becoming too popular. Then I introduced my quotation, but before I introduced my quotation, I just provided a bit of context. I said who says it and when. So in Act 1, Scene 2, in a conversation between Brutus and Cassius, Cassius says, "He doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about." One thing you'll notice with the color coding is that the green, the explain, is the largest point. In your analytical paragraphs, your analysis, your explain section, where you are explaining your quotation, should always be the longest part, okay? You're going to get most marks coming from the strength of your analysis, okay? This is what I wrote. The use of the verb bestride, meaning to dominate, is associated with power and suggests that, in Cassius's view, Caesar is becoming too influential among the Roman public and could soon dominate Rome's political world. This is developed further in the simile, like a colossus. A colossus is an enormous statue and can also mean to be of high importance or status. Here, Shakespeare uses metaphorical imagery of a giant to emphasize the idea that in Rome, everyone must look up to Caesar. Furthermore, Cassius's use of the adjective petty highlights the fact that he regards himself as becoming less and less important in the eyes of the Roman public as Caesar's popularity grows. His use of the collective pronoun we reveals that he feels Caesar as having this negative impact on all Romans, not simply himself. Though this does introduce the theme of jealousy into the play, as an audience member may regard Cassius's words as a hint of jealousy towards Caesar. This is further supported by the use of the metaphor, walk under his huge legs, meaning that while Caesar enjoys immense support within Rome, all others must simply watch Caesar's steps and play a secondary role. Lastly, the use of the verb peep further emphasizes this sense of inferiority, as the verb peep, meaning to look quickly, has connotations of fear and insecurity. Cassius might be suggesting that Caesar's growing power comes at the expense of others, whereas Caesar stands as a powerful giant. All others must peep through society. Now, I don't want anyone to feel uneasy or anxious or uncertain having seen this analytical paragraph. I can already imagine what some people are saying. If I was teaching right now, I could already imagine some of your faces and some of you going, oh, that's too long. Oh, I'm not going to be able to write like that. Now, this is just an example of a model paragraph, okay? What this video is aiming to do is to show you what ingredients your analytical paragraphs need to include, okay? A point, evidence, and an explanation of your evidence. And also I wanted to outline how you might go about annotating your quotations, okay? I'm not suggesting that everyone should be producing 3 or 4 paragraphs of this length, okay? Certainly not, although some of you might. What I wanted to do though is just to show you what your paragraphs might look like, okay? If you're writing in this way, if you're using quotations, if you're analyzing your quotations, if you're using these sentence starters, then I promise you, you will be on the right track, okay? And I just want to give everyone one last reminder that this isn't a formal assessment as such, okay? I don't want anyone to be particularly anxious doing this, okay? We understand that we're doing remote learning, we're working from home. This is very different. You don't have your teachers with you, okay? So from the English department, we just want to make it very clear that as long as you give this a good go and you try your best, we will be happy, okay? This isn't going to affect setting or anything like that. This is just our way of seeing how you're getting on, so we know how we can help you moving on in the future, okay? What I would like you to do, of course, now is I'd like you to try and take 2 more quotations from this section. You write the first one here where it says quote 2. You pick your second choice and you put it in the quote 3 box. Annotate them in the exact same way that we've done here, and then try to write analytical paragraphs out of them, okay? I wish you all the best of luck, and on behalf of the English department, I would like to say we hope you are all doing very well. As always, please do not hesitate to get in contact with any of your teachers or Miss Johnson, Miss Hayward, if you have any questions about English at all, and we would be happy to help. Okay, first form, goodbye.